Good morning. I'm going to call to order the meeting of the Eastham Affordable Housing Trust on Wednesday, July 24th, 2024. The meeting is hybrid. People can Zoom in if they want. The meeting is also being recorded and will be available on the Eastham website at www.eastham-ma.gov. We have a quorum. We have 4 of our 5 members here. Amy had a conflict and so was not able to be here. So let's see, we have meeting minutes from the meeting of May 9th. That was our last meeting. So in your packet, there's a copy of the minutes if you want to take a quick look, and we'll take a vote on the minutes.
I noticed in the last paragraph, it speaks to our discussion regarding the RAP program. And it was decided not that, that we would do a, landlord tenant affidavit.
Yes.
I don't know if you want that to reflect that in there.
Can say that again?
Landlord
Yes.
tenant affidavit in lieu of towns that don't have
Right.
a rental certificate.
We can add that. Maybe just adding the last, in the last sentence, via affidavit. Okay. Okay, Karen, if you want to make that change on the one you sent to the.
I will, yeah.
Okay, I'll entertain a motion for approval of the May 9th minutes as amended. Jeff, seconded. Elaine, all in favor? Aye. Aye. Pass 4-0. Thank you very much. Okay, we need to do each year when at the beginning of the fiscal year, which is started July 1st, we need to do an annual reorganization, which means we have elect the chair, vice chair, a clerk, and our official representative to the Community Preservation Committee. And so that's an agenda item for the committee. I'm happy to continue to serve as chair, but if somebody else would like to serve as chair, I'm happy to relinquish the spot.
Nominate you as chair.
Second.
All right. All right. The vice chair, Amy has been our vice chair. I think she's willing to continue to do that. Okay, so all in favor of Amy as vice chair? Aye, okay. Karen, are you willing to continue as secretary? You're kind of in a groove as clerk, or would you rather pass that
If
on?
someone else would like to do it, I'd be happy to
I'm not a good enough.
share it.
No, I know.
Otherwise, I would.
Okay. Karen, I'm going to ask you to continue as clerk. And then in terms of the CPC, so all in favor, Karen as clerk? Aye. Okay, 0. In terms of representative to the CPC, I've been doing that. I don't remember how long, 7 or 8 years. And I would like to relinquish that spot. I did talk with Elaine, and she's interested in serving on the CPC committee. I think as a housing advocate, that would be pretty awesome.
Happy to do that.
So if that's okay with everybody, I'd like to recommend that Elaine become a representative to the CPC committee.
In favor?
Okay, all in favor? Aye. Okay, Elaine, thank you. It's an important role to, as I know I don't have to say, to be the housing advocate, but also just being a thoughtful community citizen on that committee, because that's committee who spends the money of the Community Preservation Act that we raise. And in the next year or two, we're most likely to see some fairly large projects and some big decisions being made, particularly about housing, but also wastewater and other town priorities. So it's always an interesting committee, usually goes quite smoothly. They start, are they meeting in August?
No,
No,
next,
meeting.
start back up in September.
Okay, the first Wednesday in September is usually, first Wednesday of the month is usually the committee meeting. Although I think we changed it for September.
Yeah, I'll have, Stacy, Lady, office, the
Okay,
staff
Uh-huh.
with me, and I'll have her get in contact with you. If you want to meet before September meeting, just to get up to speed. we can
I
set
think
that
that'd
up.
be great, yeah. Meet with Paul. I'd be happy to meet with you and give you my ideas too, if you want, or even just a phone call. I will email Mary Shaw, who is, until we, no, she still is the chair, right? We did the reorganization. No, we haven't done the reorganization. But she's the current chair. Okay. So that she knows, and the town clerk, so that they know, because you'll have to get sworn in again as on the CPC committee. Okay. Just details. Okay, thank you. The main subject for today that I wanted to talk about is our work plan for the upcoming year. And that relates to the trust. It ties back to the work of the contents of the strategic plan of the town. And the things that in the strategic plan are discussed. It ties back to the housing production plan and the things that are discussed as goals and actions related to housing. So Paul, the strategic planning committee has just revised the strategic plan, updated it, I guess is a better way to say that, and are in the process of doing that, I guess. So Paul just did a presentation to the select board on Monday about the strategic plan updates. And so I think it'd be great for him to do that short presentation for us, because what we do relates so much to what's in there. And it sets the stage for our work plan for the coming year. So Paul, if you would like to do that, that'd be great.
Case notes up there. I think I'll put it for the recording.
Right.
So this is, we're in the update process for the 5-year plan, and I gave an update to the select board on Monday, and, we're trying to go out to all the regulatory boards to start. And then as much as we can, all the other committees, so this is good, obviously this is a key committee, so I wanted to do this, and it lines up good. I will try to go through this quickly, because there's a lot of content, but then circle back to the housing stuff, but, you know, basically, this is our 5-year plan, our short-term plan to try to prioritize the objectives that are gonna get us towards our overarching goals and principles. Just so you know, these are the folks that are on the strategic planning committee. I don't know, are you planning? Carolyn is contemplating, not to put it on the spot. All right, so I didn't put you on there because I want, so possibly Carolyn be on the committee as well. So what we're trying to do is obviously use the current plan as the foundation. But we're trying to incorporate all the various sub plans. We have a housing production plan, we have a wastewater plan, we have a harbor management plan, we have a lot of different plans. And all of those plans have their own set of strategies and their own set of recommended action items. So we're trying to go through all those plans, check off what's being done, identify what's already in progress and what will likely continue to be in progress for the next 5 years, or things that we know are gonna be worked on in the next 5 years in all of those plans. And then the highest priority action of those plans, move them up and put them into the strategic plan. So at the end of all this, when you look at the strategic plan, you're looking at the highest priority items of the already priority items in all the plans. It's not to say that all the other things and the other, I call them sub-plans, but they're all important, but just in terms of strategic plan and kind of subordinate to that, but doesn't mean that everything, all these other action items that don't get integrated into the strategic plan won't happen or no work will happen. But it's just as in terms of what is the major focus, what should the priorities be when it comes down to staff time, or budget, or other things like. This is gonna help us focus our energies. We're all, as part of that, so we're looking at the other plans, we're looking at regional model bylaws and best practices from county and the region and the state. And seeing where those fit in to play out as well. And then we're really trying to simplify this plan a bit and try to make it a little more usable so that it can be, to the extent we can do it, a management tool for the town administration and for staff, for department heads to try to get, our work lined up, our department lined up, our budget requests lined up with strategic plan. And the select board goes through their own goal setting process, which they're gonna be working on at the next few meetings that they're having. So obviously, all of the members there, they come to their goals with their own ideas and everything. So we're trying to make sure that we can coordinate their goals, work them in, and so there'll be a vetting process that Jackie's trying to go through with the select board. And then, as we'll see today, a lot of the committees and boards have their own ideas and things they want to go on. So I think it works well where these committees can get their own work plans in order, see where they line up, and hopefully they should line up with the strategic plan. Again, that kind of gets everything in order. So that's the general approach to what we're trying to do, nest all these things together. We are trying to simplify things a bit, so the guiding principles, which you'll see, are unchanged. They're pretty universal. It's broken up into goals, strategies, the current plans, goals, strategies, sub-strategies, and over 100 action items, and those are very detailed. And we got into the weeds a bit, and we're trying to simplify that. So, some of the action items are, draft the document that says X, Y, Z. That's way too in the weed. That gets staffed out and worked in. So we're trying to simplify these things. And just as example, so this is kind of how it's laid out, and then it's really the sub strategies and the action steps are where we felt like, and then when I say we, referring to the strategic planning committee and the feedback we've gotten from kind of the staff audit we've done. Just a little bit too cluttered, and I think in the new plan where we have streamlined objectives and the action items are simplified, it's a lot easier for staff to they will know what the basic action item is. Then I got to go make sure I got the staff or assign whoever to go do the little details. So
Proper buckets.
yes,
Yeah. But going back to that, I think that one slide. You can imagine if you're someone in the town and you read the strategic plan, you look at that page and your eyes start to glaze over because there's no white space. There's no, it's just such a level of detail that it's not useful for the town community also to follow along what's going on and to agree or disagree with what's being said.
Well, I mean, there's a lot of text, but I don't see anything that seems, redundant or,
No.
to get, but yeah, it's a lot to, and
It's
this
a lot
is
to
just,
absorb.
this is just page one, right?
Exactly.
And this is the
Right,
not updated.
And this is
yeah,
this is the current.
It's
This is
just,
the current.
Not
it's just an example
Okay.
of one set of strategies.
right, and all of these things are SDP, and every time something crops up, it
Right,
shakes the plan a little bit.
right.
So we're not touching the overall arching principles from the current plan. Those are pretty broad and all encompassing, and but we are trying to go from 6 down to 4 goals that are a little bit broader. But still, I think cover the overall local global sentiment, what we're trying to do. We have gone through the first pass with the committee and working with staff, and so forth, to kind of do an audit of where we are with the current plan. And we have reworked the goals, reworked the objectives, but now we want to go back and make sure that they're smart objectives, which, use an acronym, specific, measurable, attainable, result oriented, time bound, because another thing we found was the actions and strategies that got assigned. Two things, the things that got assigned directly for staff support got the most done, and that makes sense, just because it's more targeted, it's harder for a committee as an entity to do things, and then the nature of it, a lot of it just needs staff to do it anyways, even with the best of intentions. So I'll explain more on that in a minute, but I think we wanted to make sure like these have a metric assigned to it so that we can figure out if it's actually something we can implement. And so just as a kind of implementation piece, but also what we found in the current plan was we struggled with the metrics, and even when we were coming up with the original plan, just trying to assign a metric, how are we going to measure ourselves against this? And we just found a lot of the stuff we were just using the wrong measurement, wrong metric, or there just wasn't a good way to do it. So that's one thing that we wanted to try to address in the current plan. So using this smart objective criteria just basically means we have the language, we want to go back. You'll see a lot of the objectives are a little bit the way they're worded. They're kind of vague, broad, and I think once we rework it, we can actually get it so that it's put into terms of we're going to try to do, instead of working on everything for housing, what's something specific that we can say by 2029 or by whatever, increase, decrease, add to, by something. Not everything's going to lend itself to a number or percentage or a quantitative item, but to the extent we can do that, that's what we're trying to do with this planning committee. And we may find that some of the objectives we want to keep as the way they are, they just don't lend themselves to that. And I think, we'll live with that, but that's what we're trying to do in the next few weeks, is try to rework these things. And as I mentioned, trying to identify responsible entities, gets to staff capacity, timelines for deliverables. A lot of the stuff is our moving targets. A lot of the things we don't have direct control over because it's do a piece of work, then wait for the state to make a decision or wait for it. So we want to have some parameters around that, but we don't always control a hard deadline. So these are just things we're trying to fine tune. And again, today, I want to go through with this stuff and with the other boards and committees just to make sure, if there's things that haven't made the cut so far that should really get into. So these are all this stuff is the new plan. So, and again, these need to go through with the smart rework with the smart objectives, kind of overlay that. Clean environment, resilient community, and this kind of, as you'll see, trying to go through where we already have a plan, as I mentioned, like what is in that plan that it should be prioritized. So the broad goal is implement phase 1 of the wastewater management system. Okay, well, in that plan, there's phase 1 has a bunch of stuff. So go through that and say it might be, it's not this, but just, it might be link up X% of town to phase 1 of sewer. It's not going to be that, but just something to that effect that's in that plan. Same thing with stormwater. We have a stormwater management plan. It already identifies the 5 priority stormwater projects in town that we're trying to work on. So when you get to the action items, those are going to make up the action.
So like that Great Pond Road culvert, that's an example of
Yeah.
something like that, okay.
Yeah,
Right, and there's a priority
yeah.
list of what should get done.
And the action items are going to be, design, permit, construct, Great Pond, Cove, Great Pond. Not getting into the detail of like action item, like draft RFP to go out to get
Right.
bids,
And I think the nice thing about doing this is because there is a wastewater plan, there there is a climate action plan, and so by referencing them, then as those plans evolve and change, they get incorporated back up and into the strategic plan without having to rewrite the strategic plan. I think that was something in the prior plan. It was so detailed that as things evolved and through staff work or committee work or boards or whatever, or the state sending stuff to us, you don't want to go back and redo the strategic plan all the time. That's inefficient, and that's not what a strategic plan should be. It
Right.
should be broad in a 5-year look. So by doing it this way, those things get incorporated much more readily.
So I'm gonna go through these slides kind of quick, because these are just the goals and the objectives, and I have slides that go into the action
Right.
steps, so. But just to mention, a new area, just climate is a new focus area that really wasn't in the current plan. And so we're trying to integrate that as much as possible throughout the plan and working with the climate action. Goal 2 kind of covers a lot of ground. This is where Northeast Dam Center Master Plan comes into play, just finishing the water distribution system. A lot of the stuff as we get into the action items, the affordable workforce housing items are gonna fall within goal 2. And zoning and land use development, which are all interrelated, so I will circle back to that in a minute. Goal 3, quality of life, diversity, of residents in a strong community. This really gets to community programs and facilities. A new focus area is ADA accessibility. And so we have, last year we had our, an ADA accessibility audit done by an outside group as part of our compliance. So we have a plan that identifies, here's all of our town facilities and our town policies and things we have to work on. So going through that, prioritizing what's on the plan. And again, some of that is just physical things. Other things are, having local policies in place for how to handle accessibility things. So. And 4 is a new thing. So excellence in town services. So as I mentioned before, everything in the strategic plan comes back to, there's going to be an element of staff capacity, technology, capacity in general for the town. So this is trying to look at what are we doing, what are we capable of doing, what do we need to plan for in the future. So staff support, technology, things like that. And the customer service element to all this that runs through just how we providing the everyday, not just the big projects, but everyday service. Just kind of recap on, so we've met with the Climate Action Committee. We had a presentation with our department senior staff last week. Going to the Board of Health meeting on the 25th. Basically the same presentation, and then we got ourselves lined up for August and September to go to the regulatory meetings. And then we're going to try to look at the other groups as best we can fit into it. We'll have a public information session on September 4th. I got to nail down the time. It'll be late afternoon or evening, but we'll give an overview, questions and answers. There'll be a public comment period. The draft plan will be up on the website. We'll do some social media posts, things, try to get the word out as best we can. And then, final cleanup and iterations of the plan. Basically, this goes back to the select board in September, October-ish, whenever we finally get it lined up with that general time frame. And hopefully adoption by the board. And then we got to work with the strategic planning committee just to kind of figure out, okay, where do we go from here, process for monitoring and updates and things like that. So that's the general time frame. So I'm going to jump into these break out the action steps. So this is related to the wastewater. I'll kind of go over, like, go back, but just kind of jump into the housing stuff.
Yes, in the interest of time, yeah.
But this just to say, trying to rework, these is not the final language, but trying, like, instead of, we're trying to say, we implement at least 3 of the 5. Just to try to get that into a smart objective, get it some sort of metric on it. That may not be this kind of a simplified take on it. Again, 3 land management plans out of the priority ones. So now we're into items kind of focusing on housing and land use development. The Northeast Dam Center master plan has a lot of elements to it, and I know Jackie wants to come. Hopefully we can schedule for next month and give a presentation on the Northeast Dam Center overall, because that relates to Town Center Plaza, the Route 6 highway itself, wastewater, all those things. So that's kind of a whole other thing unto itself that we're trying to line. So we'll have more detail on that next month. What we're doing now is trying to implement form-based code. Again, we'll have a discussion on that as part of the other at next month. But this relates to land use, which relates to zoning, which is going to relate to housing, allowing zoning that will allow for increased density in the types of housing types that we need. So diversifying from single family homes. And Carolyn is on the task force, so she's in the trenches with me working on that. So we can.
And Jeff was.
And Jeff,
Oh, and the
we're
zoning,
sorry,
yes,
Yeah, zoning
yes.
task force, right.
Now we're into the form-based code, so the commercial districts, yes.
Which is,
You got out just in time.
no, that was actually very interesting to me. I was the 3-hour meetings that weren't
Yeah.
interesting. I think the form-based code is absolutely integral to what's going on. I thought it was really cool, actually.
Yeah.
But
We'll keep sending.
too
you
much,
stuff.
yeah, but too much,
Yeah.
too much data
Yeah, no,
to manage.
Yeah, it is a lot.
It
Yeah.
is.
But
Me too.
it's absolutely a step in the right direction.
So we're working on zoning, we're working on Route 6 itself, and we're trying to come up with an overall corridor vision plan. I'll leave this as public water supply. This is actually gonna pretty fall into line with what we know. It's just, it's pretty straightforward things we gotta achieve. So affordable workforce housing sufficient to meet defined needs is the objective. That'll get reworked and what I'm anticipating is some of these objectives will probably have to create some additional ones just because that's pretty broad. And so, and the action steps cover a whole variety of things. Some of them are gonna be nuts and bolts, like fixing up actual properties versus zoning versus, so we might have to break up some of these objectives just to say, okay, you know. So I anticipate that. We're looking at model bylaws for year-round housing incentives. We're looking at model bylaws for multifamily conversions. We're looking at the Cape Cod region, the Cape Cod Commission's regional housing strategy, which just came out, and they've, we worked with them on that. So there's a lot of overall regional housing strategies, kind of blanket, but then they have things that working with each town, they identified these would be good strategies for East Dam specifically. So we're going through that, trying to incorporate that.
And the important thing about that for our work plan is that the Cape Cod Commission is, what's the right word for there's some things that we're going to have work on with them in a regional capacity.
Yeah.
You know, right term for this, but, so that when you see our work plan, there's some things that we might be referring to work that being done by the commission that will support things that we need to get done. I want to.
What's 2555? What address is that? State Highway, I'm sorry, 5.
Beach Club.
Oh, that's Beach. Okay, good.
And I think we're gonna have a update. On stabs to that property to trust those. So again, and then so, 5 through 8, 9 are really more nuts and bolts things of these are the properties that we have. We know we have to get them fixed up. They need work. We want to get them, some of them to be rented. So that's a huge chunk of what Rachel's working on. And so we know this is going to be the next 5 years. So put it into the strategic plan. Ensure affordable workforce. Sorry, this is continue on number 10. So this is where I tried to go into the housing production plan and identify the items that are already in the plan because they're already recommendations. And also where it lines up with the second bullet point is the ADU assistance program is something that is in our sites, but it's also in the regional strategy plan. So again, because I should have mentioned this too, wherever we can identify multiple overlaps, that's another way we can vet and prioritize things. So if we're looking at, we do a culvert replacement because it's stormwater. Well, we got 5 of them. Well, one of them is going to do a water quality improvement. It's going to have a salt marsh restoration component. It's going to also mean the access to the waterway itself, the boat ramp, whatever it is going to be taken care of. So it checks off multiple things across different management, different sub plans. So that's a way we can say, okay, and when it comes down to which one do we put staff time on, which one do we go for a grant? They're all important, but this one checks 3 boxes instead of 1. So we go after that.
And so identifying the things that, what I was trying to say before, not very articulately, that are in the regional, Cape Cod Commission's regional housing strategy and the housing production plan and the strategic plan. So those are going to rise to the level of things that you get most attention from a staff and budget perspective.
Yeah, so this, just number 10 is pretty big, but I just think it's important. This is where I'll go through and refine. And still in the same goal, but identify and implement zoning that supports land use development initiatives. Again, so this is going to be overlap with form-based code for the commercial district in Northeastham, but also looking at housing related items and referencing the commission's best practices and things that are in the housing strategy. And things that the zoning task force has worked on previously, and we've made changes that have been approved in the local bylaw kind of related to residential pieces, but we knew that there were things that we wanted to go back and revisit. So number 5, for example, the open space residential bylaw, which allows more clustered development to be able to increase density, which is a good thing, but there's a density bonus if you do, and it's also trying to preserve open space and have a more environmentally friendly way of developing. So there's density bonuses you can get if you're going to go above and beyond the minimal open space requirement, but there's nothing in the bylaw for density bonus if you're going to do affordable housing. We weren't able to work that into the bylaw. So again, just trying to identify things that were on the task force, go back and relook at. Again, things will change, come into focus as we have wastewater. We'll know, be able to go back and that's really why we didn't know what the deal was going to be fully with wastewater capacity. So, and we'll end up going through this with the task force in September probably.
Right.
And for our to-do list.
Right.
So those, yeah, I'll just go through this quick and then we'll go back just so you see the rest of the plan. Community programs. There's some of the stuff is still in progress. There's a human services. There isn't a plan per se, but there are a number of projects and programs in the works. So we want to go through, identify those. Public health, where it is. This actually is also where the transportation things kind of get. I don't know if they're going to stay here or be in facilities, but looking at complete streets. Again, there's a complete streets plan out there, so safety improvements, bike paths, sidewalks, accessibility for everybody. We have a set of priority areas in town, so we want to identify those. Internet access is gonna fall into. So,
Oh, please.
again, recreation opportunities, COA programming, making sure that we have integration, recovering. Broad spectrum. This is where the implementation of the ADA accessibility plan comes into play, so. We're still vetting. This section. What the final action items will be. And yeah, this is just, we haven't really got what the action steps for the town services will be yet. So this. And this is just placeholder, so, you know, in the plan, we will recap what we've done. We've done a lot in the current plan, we've made a lot of progress. So there'll be space to recap things that we've accomplished. This is just an example of some of the things we've done. So I can email this out to everybody so we can have more time with it, but I just wanted to give everyone a really quick overview so you knew we were updating the strategic plan, this is the basic parameters, the approach we're doing, and basically where we're trying to align things. So just to set up the next part of the discussion.
Right.
And I can go back through any of the slides as we go through our discussion on
Okay.
this chart.
And the segue is to try to create a work plan for the Affordable Housing Trust. And as sort of the setup for this, again, through the housing production plan and the prioritization of the actions in the housing production plan that direct staff time, budget resources, and also lay out, and so that's really important because by having an adopted work plan that supports the housing production plan, that goes to Jackie and the town department heads to say, these are our priorities and need to get incorporated into your plans. The other part of that is there are some steps, some actions in the work plan that are appropriate perhaps for us as committee members to take on and take accountability for, that staff won't have time to do, and that we maybe have the either skill sets or resources, the ability to do. So we have to kind of put together a plan that I think it's both staff directed and member directed. It's a comprehensive list, so I don't want to scare anybody off that, you know, this is all has to be done this year. Some of the dates may need to be changed to, and some of them are just open. So, but Rachel did a great job of putting in some additional, in red, some additional items. What does SP mean?
That's strategic plan.
Yeah, okay.
So, yeah, I took Carol's document and anything without, I just. So, you know, the original content was. And I added the column corresponding plan, so it's still a work in progress to determine whether, you know, something is in strategic plan, Cape Cod Commission's plan, or another plan that we have, the community housing plan, just so we know where it lives, or if it doesn't live anywhere,
Right,
then we're relying on the priorities is, you know, 27 goals, so just lofty.
right.
So, you know, it'll help us prioritize.
Right. So I thought my purpose today was just go through, have you get familiar with it, and then maybe pick off a few of the low-hanging fruit items that we can start to pay some attention to. So, and these are not in any priority order. to evaluate the town-owned land. We actually went through with the Open Space Committee, identified opportunities for town already owned land that might be opportunities for housing and or housing and open space. And the Sandy Meadow area, there's this big Sandy Meadow area that's when you go in the little road off to the right. But off to the left, there's a smaller parcel that could be very suitable for affordable housing. So work needs to be done to continue that discussion. Decide if the town wants to do that and decide how they want to do it. Do we want to do it, the town do it, do an RFP, get a developer in there? Do we want to work with a private developer? Maybe just give or sell the land to the developer. There's just work to be done to figure out how to do that. There's some spaces that maybe Habitat could target. We're in continual, just not continual, but routine discussion with Habitat on that. They're just overwhelmed with the amount of work that they have to do. So we haven't made it to the top of their priority list. And then continuing to, which something as Rachel in the town finance department does, is continuing to monitor tax defaults for land that's suitable for taking, like we did with the condos, the Dickies condos.
There's been a lot of, apparently there's some current changes in how that is allowed to roll out. So I'm not real familiar with that, but the treasurer did speak to me about that
Okay.
last week. That
Okay.
There's a lot of changes.
The ADU assistance program, that's something that we've talked about for a while. HAC and CDP have some assistance programs in place in terms of technical assistance. But I believe it's correct to say they don't have any monetary assistance programs yet. And we've talked about a monetary program, a grant, something that help people develop, incentivize people to do ADUs. And that's part of the Cape Cod Regional Housing Strategy. And there was a consultant with the Cape Cod Regional Housing Strategy that's working on the development of a program that could be a grant program. So that would then come back through us for potentially for funding.
Is that, I'm sorry, is that like a regional grant or a state, or would that
No.
come from us?
It would come from the trust, or
Oh.
it would come from the town as part of the community housing program.
So we have
Could do
we have
one
a
or the other.
draft and
Right.
consultant using town community housing funds with a caveat. With the trust, it's just a little trickier with how that would all work, and we haven't had, but there's further meetings to go through review of that.
We're always looking at, if we use community housing funds, town community housing funds, then they're less limiting in terms of income levels, whereas the trust is always limited to 100%. And so trying to meet the needs of both low and moderate income and workforce housing was looking at which way makes the most sense. It gives the most flexibility, because we need all of those kinds of housing. So if it gets funded through the community housing plan program, it is more flexible for the homeowner that wants to do an ADU.
I am staunchly in favor of that. I think the ADU is certainly more cost effective for the town to
Right.
support ADUs, and then kind of just,
Right.
not have to, there's no carry on it for the town. Once it's done, it's done. We get the benefit of the person living there, and we don't have to, put an
We don't,
ongoing.
and
That's an ambitious, awesome plan, but it's not gonna be cheap. So anything that can increase the housing stock without a lingering, cost of monitoring, and I think is great.
right, and that's another reason why using community housing plan funds, because then there isn't ongoing monitoring. If we use affordable housing funds, I mean, there's more limited, I
Yeah.
guess, or less requirements. If you use housing fund, affordable housing trust funds, there's definitely ongoing income monitoring. that has to-
It's still a good investment.
And for your knowledge too, there is a third document there, which is the current work plan. And so it's kind of, there's column that has check marks, again, it's a work in progress, but it kind of aligns with Carolyn's document as to, what in that is already being worked on, so there's some cross-referencing there. So that we know, what we're currently doing and how it relates to the strategic plan and this affordable housing trust.
And is it likely that the ADU assistance program, the timeframe of this fall, is that still a
I
good?
think so, yes.
Yeah, okay,
I think
so that's
it's
good.
realistic.
Number three, should come to our attention actually over several years, but trying to be prepared if somebody calls up the town and says, I have land I want to give you, or I have a house I want to give you. How can we do that? We've done an initial legal review, which at a high level, which basically says most of it's on the part of the donor to do the work on the deed and all of the things that they need to. There's not much legally that we need to do. We might want to consider doing some outreach in the community. Once we've had a successful outcome of one of those, outreach to the community, say, hey, just so you know, we've got a lot of older people, some of whom don't have any descendants that they want to gift property to or leave property to. Maybe we might start seeing some of that.
Might be something to look at for the weekend. It's coming up
Mhm.
quickly, but.
Probably won't be ready for this Windmill weekend. I don't think, because I don't think we're ready.
Town meeting,
But-
something where people are.
Yeah, but places where people gather and a program of the COA. Or in their newsletter, okay. Being ready, this is something, Jeff, number 4 that we've talked about. Having an early identification with realtors of properties that are maybe going to come up for sale that might be appropriate for the town to consider purchasing and to keep them in the affordable realm. And what would be our criteria? We've had a few ad hoc, one of those, we'll keep doing them ad hoc if we have to. But thinking sometime this year, is there something in the way of a presentation to realtors that we could go out with that would talk more directly about that so that we can get the word out? There aren't a lot of those opportunities right now. The market is such that there's not, but
Right, but there are, there've been a few pieces of land, or if we could find something with an accessory unit
Mhm.
that needs just the right amount of work, that's
Right.
not in a location,
Right.
and the numbers might work for that. So,
Yeah.
we can come up with some guidelines for that, and, the cost benefit assessments, it's not that hard to do, yeah.
right, yeah, exactly. Number 5, we have had some success with ADUs. Roughly how many have we permitted now?
Permitted 24.
Yeah.
Not all of those. Which
That's good.
In the last,
15.
how long, Paul, in the last couple of years?
that's within the last, what do you want,
It's
last,
the,
since the new
bylaw.
ADU bylaw went into effect, which was 2019.
And before that, we had 2 or something.
Yeah.
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 So we got about
It's good.
12, 15 that have.
Actually been, yeah,
with all the ADU stuff coming up with the program, we're gonna be reviewing our process.
Yep.
To as a team.
and something to consider is a request from the Affordable Housing Trust to the Select Board to consider adoption of a waiver of fees for ADUs. Anything we can do to eliminate barriers so that people want to do this. So we'll take that up this fall.
I was thinking that might be something we can incorporate into the ADU program.
Mhm. Right.
Ask Karen Summer to just,
The other
might be a way just to tie that up.
Tied together.
And since I'm so bullish on, I would be happy to reach out to a couple of my local lender friends, the Kid Cut Five, and see if we can sort of establish some sort of well market
Sure.
lender buy-in on something like that.
That'd be great. Six is doing more work with some of our local employers about creating housing that's specifically for full-time and seasonal employees. And I don't know exactly what that would look like, but next spring, beginning to more actively explore that. Those are all sort of new, how to get new housing on the books. In terms of retaining housing, one of the programs that has been successful in some other communities is for trying to continue to get landlords to rent full-time as opposed to the seasonal rentals. How can we do something to help incentivize the landlords to want to do that? And one program that's been successful in other communities has been a program that provides first and last month's rent and or a damage program, prevention program, so that if a tenant's in and they create some damage above and beyond what's reasonable for the landlord to take care of, is there a program that we kind of pull together that the town picks up some of that? It's just a way to incentivize. My experience with that program in another community is we created the program, landlords loved it. Nobody ever used it because the damages never really rose to that level. So, but it provided a nice incentive for the landlords. So,
The NA on that just means I haven't seen it yet in a plan, so
Right.
there's
Yep.
more work to do on that.
Right.
And just for everybody's information, there are some first, last, and security
mhm,
like organizations that.
right. That relates to number 8, trying to get landlords to convert from short-term to long-term rentals, at least a local program that Provincetown has put in place. That's part of the Cape Cod model bylaw to try to create some of that. Is that right?
Yes.
Right. The help program, which is for rehab, we had a great discussion last month with TRI, which is the company that administers the CDBG-like home rehab program for low and moderate income folks in Eastham as well as Truro, some other towns. And as well as we have our own program. We talked about the similarities and differences and how we can work together to try to preserve what housing we do have. One of the things about both those programs, our program and the TRI program, is that they're just not very well used. And we think that there's a lot of opportunity for outreach about both those programs. And one of the things that occurs to me is I don't know how many realtors know that those programs exist. And that as realtors have either properties that they look at to possibly be up for sale that could qualify for the program, or prior buyers that they're just in touch with that say, now I bought this, but now I need a roof, I need a new HVAC. They do have affordability restrictions for a certain amount of time, forgivable loan for a certain amount of time. But there might be some outreach efforts that we can undertake that would publicize those programs. Home sharing as a program, people have excess capacity in their home. They'd like to have somebody come and live with them just to share it, but they don't want to be a landlord. They just want a way to kind of make it happen. That might be a regional project through the Cape Cod Regional Housing Strategy. It's not actually in their strategy, but it's something they've talked about. As Rachel said, and we've talked about, for rehabbing of properties that the town has acquired, continuing that work. And capital improvement projects on the current properties that we do own. Those are ongoing programs.
Yeah, Richard will be coming to a meeting at some point too.
The capital improvement,
Yeah.
that'd be great. The rental assistance program, again, it really still needs outreach where it's not well subscribed. And Elaine, I was wondering if that might be something this fall that you could help us work on, figuring out how to get the word out more there clearly have to be lots of people who would qualify for that program. They're just not using it. Down payment closing cost assistance. We have continued to go back and forth about whether or not that program would work. And how it would, how effective it would be, given the cost of housing at this, because for the trust to do that program, it would have to be for low and moderate income. There aren't any properties out there that even the down payment closing cost assistance probably would make the difference for somebody to be able to afford it. The finances just don't line up at the moment. But we just need to keep the monitor to see if maybe they might. I don't know. You
Something we want to
keep on the list, but not permanently drop, but it's not a top priority.
Yeah, it's a great idea.
But I'm not sure the finances at this point. I don't know.
Yeah, if interest rates came down, it might get
Maybe.
a little closer.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay.
So it is interesting. I won't take a lot of time on this, but it is interesting that there's sort of like a magic number in the marketplace that people can. The firefighter, school teacher
Mhm.
couple, or the person who works for Cape Associates and somebody, that magic number seems to be in the $500,000 to $550,000 range, where at the current interest rates, where if they get a 5%, Cape Cod 5, they get a 95% financing. It seems to be the stretch to the snapping point is 550, 500, they can usually get close and make it work. And that doesn't leave much for repairs and things like that, but if you
If
bought
we
it
kick
down
in.
$100,000, then their ratios work there with the lender, and all of a sudden they can swing that
Right.
modest ranch and can do that even a few times a year.
Right,
And it's again, and then we're sort of, there's no ongoing cost to the town.
Right. right,
I think is
exactly
good
right.
and helpful. And they have a horse in the race, and it feels different than when you rent it.
Yes. It certainly does. Outreach and education. Kayla is committed now to doing more social media effort for us. But I think that's also maybe, Elaine, because you have, skills in that area, but there are things that you identify that you think we could be doing as outreach. We have sort of, as I think of it, we have sort of three different kinds of outreach. We have outreach that's generally about housing and the need for housing, and in advance of what probably will be happening in the next year or two as the town works on the tea time and town center, big projects. We're gonna need to be sure that people are well educated and informed about why the need for housing is important, and what some of this all means as someone who lives in the town.
So Jackie and Kayla, they're working on Jackie's done a presentation to the select board that she'll be doing here, but she's put a lot of time and effort putting something together. She wants to do a forum this fall to update people on what's
Right.
happening, so they are getting a plan together for
Right.
that.
And so that'll be good. Then there's outreach about specific programs.
Right.
Like the help program and the rehab program, to be sure that that information is going out. Doing something in the tax mailings, as an example, of one way that's had a little bit of success in the past. That reaches homeowners at least.
I think, like Elaine has skills and experience in this, but I think that's helpful, like drafting press release or content for social media. I mean, Kayla can post it for us and make sure that it's running, but just that's the part where it's like, if we are coming up with the content, or at least the content, but we may need, Kayla's posting it for us. We need a little bit of, graphic design assistance from Kayla or something, just to get the words into. That's where she can help with, but we can generate content and have it.
Right.
Yeah,
In
and
a way that is,
that works
Yeah.
best for me also. I'm trying very hard to stay away from social media as
Right.
much as I possibly
and
can
our-
at this
I-
point,
I-
but I'm happy to write press releases and put together, posters and postcards and things like that to get, in terms of writing content, that's great.
I
Yes,
think that's helpful.
And I live with
Yeah.
an editor, so that's
Looking at
also
the-
good.
yeah. Looking at the time frame of during the course of a year.
Mm.
When do you want to have certain content go out?
Mhm.
There's some things that can probably run, kind of general stuff that can run continually or
Mhm.
keep repeating.
Yeah.
But then if it's something related to housing the town meeting, we want those to run strategically.
right.
And so I guess the more we know what we're doing, we have our content together and we want it to run, and then we send that to Kayla and it just makes it easy for her and then she can. set
Right.
these things up for-
Right.
Uh,
And kind of the agreement we have with Jackie, when we had this sort of similar discussion a year or so ago, was that the town has an interest in being sure that communication that goes out is consistent, is accurate, is well thought out in terms of representing the town. So we've agreed that individual members of committees, I mean, he always says an individual can do, make comments on social media as you wish, but if you're representing the Affordable Housing Trust or the town,
mhm.
those all need to go through Kayla to be sure that they're consistent, they have the right image, the right look, and that they're accurate, et cetera. So we don't individually post representing the trust.
Mhm.
I always funnel stuff to Rachel and Paul and say, if I see something that I think needs a comment, this needs a comment,
Mhm.
but I shouldn't be the person,
Right.
officially commenting. So, the immediate need we have, I think, is for you perhaps working with Rachel and or Kayla, take a look at the materials that we might be using for Windmill
Windmill
Weekend
weekend.
and our little flyers.
Yeah.
That's actually on our agenda and getting the handouts that
Right.
my usual, but that would be
Right.
great.
Yeah, so
To take
you and
just a
I and
fresh look.
Kayla, or you
Yeah.
and I meet and
Yeah.
then, yeah.
That would be great. Likewise, I think what's part of what you said that Jackie's working on with Kayla's is just having housing talking points, the housing need talking points, and clarifying what those are, and then being sure that we all know what those are, so that we can, if someone in
Mhm.
casual conversation, we're talking to people, we know those key talking points to say, they can get incorporated in any of the media that we use. And so when Jackie comes in September, we can talk about the work you're doing on that. Using local media, again, it's that fine line between representing the town and being a talking spokesperson for the town and having some local media know who they can talk, who they can go to, at least as an input process. And so you know more about any of that than most of us. So if there are hints or guidelines or things that you think that there's a routine schedule for reaching out to the independent, reaching out to the different, the independent seems to be the one that is doing the most serious reporting on.
The independent's doing stuff and the TV station will do stuff. I mean,
Yes.
we're just putting together now our town meeting site that's got sort of evergreen definitions of what terms get discussed at town meeting, what things you'll encounter when you go to town meeting, what is town meeting, and I think we'll have interviews with all of the Outer Cape town managers about this, and that is really just for people who are moving here and have never dealt with town meeting before, people who have no idea what happens. And I think once that piece is together, that we can start to work on a housing piece also that would be very similar. So, and then once those are done, then it's easy to send links to people or press releases about the fact that they're happening. And I know Jackie's working on the town meeting piece with us.
Right. The flyer for each program, again, you and Rachel can take a
Mhm,
look at
yeah.
those. continue to do outreach to the schools, employers, nonprofits, at least about the current programs. So that they know what we have. Homeowner education, targeted outreach, particularly if we talk about the lease to locals program. There may be, using the health department data about rentals, maybe targeted outreach. We should, I think in item number 21, I think we haven't yet started to do this in any, I think, consistent way, but starting to develop a mailing list of housing advocates in the town.
I have outreaches.
Okay, do you?
Yeah.
All right, good.
It's required for.
Okay. But as we have Windmill Weekend and people give us their emails and phone numbers, we add people to it. If any of you are talking to somebody and you find out that they're a housing advocate or leaning in that way, to the extent that it's feasible, collect their name and email, and we can get them to Rachel and add them to the list so that we start to have a database that we can use to send out information to. For example, if the strategic planning committee is presenting the strategic plan in a community meeting, it would be nice to email the housing advocates to say, be sure and come and voice your opinion about housing as part of the strategic plan. It sounds like the housing forum is Jackie's working on that.
Yeah.
So that's awesome.
Yeah, she announced that at the select board meeting.
Okay, that's great. Short-term rental taxes.
Sorry, NEVC, Carolyn.
Northeast
Say
and
north.
Village.
Northam, we need an acronym. Northeast Village Center. Okay, got it. Short-term rental taxes. That's at the moment, the town is using all of that towards wastewater as the priority need. But in the future, real estate transfer tax, it's on hold for now at the state level. Didn't pass, but maybe in the next iteration. And then the Barnstable County Shared Regional Housing Services Program. That's an outgrowth of the Cape Cod Commission Regional Housing Strategy.
It's Barnstable County.
Right,
It's not through the commission.
okay. And there's specific activities that will,
Yes, so that's actually for you guys to, peruse at your, your leisure. At the end of the packet, there is a list of shared regional housing services that they offer. So
okay,
we, as a town, we are eligible for up to 30 hours a week. I'm sorry, 30 hours a year. So it's not a lot of hours.
right,
This is their second year of their program. They're gonna be working on looking for funding and a host community to move the program forward, so.
mhm, okay. But they're a resource for us if we, say we decide to, I don't know, one of our programs and it needs technical assistance, we can go to them and ask for that kind of technical assistance. And then all the zoning stuff that we've talked about in the past. This is our general work plan for this upcoming year. It's a lot, but there are some things I think we can take some action on and start to knock off and use it as a way to convey to Jackie and the town staff what at least our thoughts for priorities are. And then Rachel, you have the current assignments in the existing work plan? Or,
Yes. So the check marks, and again, it's in the works,
right,
but any check marks are something that's already on the
Mhm.
plan.
right. Okay. Thoughts, other thoughts or questions?
Question, the cottage courts, did that come out of the zoning task force and that was part of the form-based code that we're talking about, or what? I'm not sure exactly what a cottage court is.
It's a development type that would allow for cottages in a
More dense,
more dense area, so that's an alternative housing style.
So instead of like converting.
not-
Solely,
yeah, it's
instead of,
not
it
that.
would be built as a cottage
Mhm.
colony,
Yeah.
but year round.
But you're
Yeah,
right.
so some, yeah, and so that
Everyone-
is a preferred housing type.
Right.
And that's something that was identified in the commission strategy plan, and it also aligned with, in the form-based code, there will be. The zoning will allow for that, and there will be a performance. Like, performance guidelines that basically say if someone wants to do something. It's allowed by zoning, and here's the parameters under which it should be, how it should be designed, laid out, so that it. Looks,
So they could theoretically do it as rentals, or they could give them their own ownership of condo kind of thing, or some,
yeah,
okay.
it would just,
Well,
it would
So
prohibit
that's
short-term rental.
paid version of tiny house thing, kind of, or.
Well,
Yeah, what kind of,
or not
Yeah.
even tiny, tiny.
Caves or like that. But
I
yeah,
have a tiny house.
Right, okay, that's one of the,
Example of that is if the COA moves to tea time into community center, that's an if, but there was talk of in the reconverting that site into a cottage colony right there. So 6 or 8 houses along a central driveway that could be affordable housing, home ownership, rental. Yeah, it'd be cute, it'd be nice, yeah, okay.
my recommendation for this would be to, Rachel and I can go through this list and finish vetting it, or cross-referencing it with the
Yes.
other plans. And also with the current assignments,
Right.
and maybe come back to this,
In September
and then kind of go through this.
and set some priorities.
Yeah,
Right,
because not all of this can get done.
No,
And some of
they
the stuff is just, I mean, a lot of elements fall under the broadest category of in the housing production plan is continue to monitor opportunities to partner with private developers, a lot of the stuff falls under that broad category anyways. Well, we always have our ear open to an opportunity, but coming up with a way to vet the properties, which is, something Rachel mentioned, like she had, your,
There's a tool.
your tool that you use. And then, and then combining it with Jeff's.
Mhm.
Yeah, with Karen, and then combining it with what Jeff brings to the table, like, that's a way to. So when something does come on the radar, it's like, okay, just. Go through the checklist.
Yeah,
Does Jeff have
information.
any, input about something we're not thinking about, being on it, and then we can either go for it or just put it aside. So, which is a long way of saying, just, I think some of this stuff, we just wanna like shorten this list, it's like what is actually for like this year,
This
and
year.
like ongoing things that are just always gonna be like on there, but
well, there's, the way I've always looked at sort of plans like this is that you have project work and you have ongoing work. So running the help program, running the RAP program, that's ongoing. It's always on the work plan. It's always what Rachel's gonna do. It's always there. But then you have things that are specific projects that are one-off once you do. Sorry, came back with bronchitis. Once you do the project, it either is done or it goes into routine work, ongoing work. So using Sandy Meadow as an example, that's a project to decide if Sandy Meadow, to do the homework, to look at the deed and restrictions and decide what we're gonna do, and then working with the developer and if we're gonna do something and et cetera, et cetera. That's a project. Once it's done, it's done. Unless it turns into something that has some ongoing monitoring, which would then turn into a routine thing. But it's a project that just gets done. And so I think to Paul's point, we need to pick off the things that are specific projects and prioritize them to decide what we really can take on, staff and or us. And it's a lot of staff work or consultant work. And be clear about which are the priorities for this year, as opposed to there's an ongoing kind of thing. I think that would be very helpful in our next meeting.
And I think one of the glaring items here, obviously, is the youth.
Right.
So that's.
Right, and we've got a consultant that's already helping us to
Right.
work on that,
And
so,
then into staff work.
right,
Which is to be determined.
right, so the
still.
project is develop a program,
Right.
and then it goes into ongoing being program. They're two different, and I think being clear in our minds, the two different components. We always have to be thinking about, is it a community, is it a town program funded through community housing program, or is it an affordable housing trust program? Whichever way it goes, and the differences between those. So we'll come back to this, but getting started on the communication materials in which segues into the next item, which is Windmill Weekend. We need to get a head start on that.
So I'll get together with you whenever you
Yeah,
have some time.
okay. At Windmill Weekend, I think we already talked about who's available to be there during the day.
I actually don't have a schedule
Yeah,
for that, so maybe I'll reach out by email and ask.
Yeah. yeah, I can be there as much as you need me to be there. Because I don't have other obligations. It's a Saturday, let's see,
It's usually 10 to 4.
Yeah.
right.
Not gonna be.
You won't be there.
You're not here, I think, I know. It's, which weekend is September 7th? My grandsons will be here.
Yeah, both sides of the green sometimes a day. but I'll be there. I said I will be here. I will probably have to split my time between two tables.
Okay.
I can do
My
that.
grandsons will be here, so we can help with the setup if you want. And take down.
Yeah.
Like we did last time. And we did have a bigger space, so we can do the ADU.
That's what I hear. They're giving us bigger space
Right.
this year. So.
What we did 2 years ago, not last year, 2 years ago, we actually took, orange paint and laid out what an ADU could look like on the ground with flags so that people could walk through and get an idea, make it more, and that was helpful, I think. But what it did was attracted attention. So then people came to the table and talked to us. So we're gonna try and do, yeah, kids would get in and run around a little bit.
They're like in the bathtub.
Yeah, so we're hopeful that we'll have the space to be able to do that. I can go back to Darren again and ask for the orange spray and the flags, use like the irrigation kind of flags.
I think Amy even has some type of painting on her, something she did with straight lines and.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, we can, okay. Would you be able to spend any time at the?
Perhaps on Sunday, Saturday, that weekend is probably gonna be crazy.
Yeah, that's what, well, we don't have a table
Yeah.
on Sunday,
Oh,
we only do
okay.
it Saturday.
Okay.
So if you
well,
can't, that's
I'll,
okay,
I'll see if I can clear the deck a little bit, yeah.
okay,
um,
or even
email
just swing
you
by.
the times
Okay,
and
yeah,
what
yeah.
the process
Yeah.
is.
Yeah.
Yeah, but.
We just are there to talk to
okay.
people and
Yeah,
tell them about the
yeah.
programs, and,
Yeah.
we hand out candy,
No
And
chocolate this year.
no chocolate.
It all melted once.
Yeah. It's a bad weekend for that. Always warm, and you think it's Tuesday.
I know we're getting late on time. Rachel, in your staff report, is there
I
anything?
think one thing I just want to point out is, at one of the units, we did have a leak, which, did turn into an insurance claim. So I'm working with Scott Carey.
Okay.
Insurance on that.
Okay,
So, and, it was in the basement and, things are back to normal, it's restored.
Okay.
It's getting better.
okay. Anything else? Our next meeting will be in September. Because we did this joint July-August meeting,
12.
right? And that may include Jackie,
Yes,
right?
Yeah.
So should we try to make that an hour and a half meeting,
You can, yeah, that's-
for people's calendars? I would say, let's try to do that. Just to give us a little bit of extra time. Anything else for the good of the group? All right, a motion to adjourn? Aye, adjourn. Thank you for staying a little bit longer.